Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Aural Theory Series. My name is Dr. Julia Alford. In this video, we are going to take a look at a modulating harmonic dictation. This dictation will be coupled in the next video with a modulating melodic dictation that will follow the same rhythm and chord progression. So make sure you hit that subscribe button to be notified when I publish the next video. So there you go. Okay, 2 videos for the price of 1. I don't know. Okay, so let's get into it. So we start in A major. It is 5 measures. The last measure, that was really a half measure because there's only 1 chord. Hint. There's half notes and quarter notes. So your first job is to decide where there are half notes and where there are quarter notes. So you have a place to put your chords. So we'll do one quick listening. You're going to do that. And then you're also going to decide the quality of the last chord because that's going to be a big clue about where we're modulating to. So let's talk about that. The first thing you want to do when doing a modulating melodic or harmonic dictation is just take a quick second, think through the circle of fifths and decide where you're going. So we're starting in A major, which has 3 sharps. Okay, that's our 1. We could add a sharp and go to E, which is our 5, and that gives us 4 sharps. Or we could lose a sharp and get to D, which is our 4. That's two sharps. Okay, so those are our 2 major options. Our minor options are the relative minor of all these keys. So D, the relative minor is B. That's our 2 in the key of A. We could go to our just overall relative minor, which would be F sharp. That is our 6. And then we could go to the relative minor of E, which is C sharp, and that is our 3. Okay, so if the last chord is major, you're going to E or D. If it's minor, you're going to B, F sharp, or C sharp. Take a minute if you need to and sink in. Before we start, one good thing to keep in mind. I will, as always, post the time code below for where we're going. So if you want to jump forward, jump backwards, grab more listings, you can always go to the description below and get that time code there. I'm going to go through relatively quickly. I always encourage you to go slow. So let's dig into it. So here's your key. Good. And first listening, just get the sense of it. There's a lot of things that you can dig into. One thing you can ask yourself, is it opening with tonic expansion? You can maybe listen for cadential 6/4 chords, all kinds of little clues you can pick up along the way. But the very first thing, just you should really have, for each measure, there's no eighth notes, but for each measure, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, and just make a mark where there's a chord. Okay, there, I gave you the first measure, it's 2 half notes. Okay, so you should have that above each measure. And just decide where your half notes are and where there's, if it goes twice as fast, there's quarter notes. I'm going to go pretty slow. Okay. Yeah. Good. So we're actually starting up here. Okay. So get that down. Oh, also, we're modulating by pivot chord. So you could try and decide where the pivot chord is, but don't get stressed out about it. It's not really that important for this first listening. All right, so here we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. In case you get 2 half notes, 2 half notes. Measure 3, half note, 2 quarters. Measure 4, half note, 2 quarters, and then we end on a half note. Good. What was the quality of the last chord? Major. So we are either going to E or D major. And next we're going to get the bass, and hopefully that will help you figure out. Any guesses on where the pivot chord is? Let's do a listening for the bass and then we'll talk about it. So I'll give you a chance to try and figure out. So if you don't know what a pivot chord is, it's the chord that, the last chord that makes sense in both keys. Okay, so pivot. So we'll analyze it in both keys. And when we get to melodic dictation, it will be our resting point for breaking up the melodic dictation. So once you hear, or actually see, for this one, you will see a chromatic note in the bass that will be a clear indication that, aha, we are now in our new key. So take a listen. I'm going to try and emphasize the bass on this one and see if you can get it. So here we go. Okay, so one more listening for the bass, and then we're going to kind of talk about what the possible chords could be, and then we'll do another listening. So listen closely and see if you can pick it up. So we start on Do, tonic. Okay, obviously I'm not playing in perfect rhythm. I'm actually going for just drop the rhythm because I just want you to focus on the chords for now. So a couple things. One, you hear this leap in the beginning. It's very indicative of a common device used at the beginning of harmonies that goes along with tonic. It was called tonic expansion or tonic prolongation. So it's basically when a composer goes back and forth between the 1 and the 5, and then maybe adds in a 7, which is what we're doing here. So to get that, you get this appoggiatura type leap up and then a step down. So do, do, do. So that tells you a couple things. One, there's a leap and a step, obviously. But it also tells you some things about the harmonies. So keep that in mind. Again, we're going to do one more listening for the bass before we really break it down. And then the other thing is we're trying to figure out where the pivot chord is. I'll tell you right now, if you haven't figured it out already, if you want to get more listenings and try and figure out your own, back up and do that. But the pivot chord is the downbeat of measure 3. So that is the last chord that makes sense in A and in our new key. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit more. So you're thinking about our two possible keys, E or D. E is F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and F, C, G, D sharp. Okay, and D sharp is our leading tone. The key of D is F sharp and C sharp. And C sharp is our leading tone. Okay, so the important thing about D is also that you're going to have G natural. And when you're doing a dictation, if you lose a sharp that's in the key signature, you have to make sure you mark that on your paper. So let's take another listening for the bass and see if you can grab some more clues. Listen carefully for steps versus skips, especially when we get to that pivot chord and get to that modulation. Okay. I'm going to go nice and slow. I'm going to lose the rhythm so you can really think through it. Okay, so let's talk about this. If you want more practice before I talk about back it up, but here we go. So we start on Do, and then we have this leap up. Da, to fa, do, fa, mi. So Do, fa, mi. Back down to Do, right? And then what happens? We have do, do. What's that interval? Maybe a little higher so you can sing it. Interval, minor, third. What's that interval? minor third. So what does that tell you? I'll let you figure it out. Let's back it up while you think through it. So that's our new do. Here we go. So if we're going La or F sharp down a minor third, what do we land on? It's a minor third down from F sharp. D sharp. Oh my goodness, so now we know what key we're in, right? Because D does not have a D sharp. If we were going to the key of D, we would instead have had, okay? And that would have given us our La in A, T, do. But we don't. We have much closer together and kind of sounds better, I guess. So we're going to the key of E. Hooray. You've got that information. So we're going to the key of E. Let's start on the pivot chord on the downbeat of measure 3 and get the rest of the bass. Do. And then what happens? Fa. And then we have what's called a cadential 6/4 chord. Probably each and every one of you have a different way of labeling it. I use 5/6/4 for the cadential 6/4. It's a whole nother video that at some point I'll make, but I'll show you how to write that on this stuff when we get there. Okay, so, and why do we know it's a cadential 6/4? We haven't even gotten into chords. We know it's a cadential 4 because sol, sol, do. That can, with the format of chord progressions, it can only be one thing. Okay, so let's talk about putting together the bass with figuring out the chords. There's a few core concepts that I like to introduce and have people think through. So the first is the phrase structure of a harmonic progression. You're going to open with something specific, usually tonic expansion, which is just 1s and 5s. So it can be a 1, a 1/6, a 5, a 5/7, a 5/4/2, 5/4/3, that kind of general thing. Then the other thing are the types of chords we can have. We have tonic chord, which is 1. We can have dominant chords, which are 5s or 5/7s. It's based with sol in the bass. Then we have predominants. So predominants are a little bit more flexible and sometimes they can go in either direction. I'll at some point soon do a longer video on chord types. So again, subscribe if you want to get that when I get to it. But the predominant chords are basically 2, 4, those are the most common ones, and sometimes 6. So it's kind of like sometimes Y is sometimes a vowel. So, and they always come in right before a cadence. Okay, so they can happen earlier, but in this sort of like super abbreviated model that we're using here, you're going to put the predominance before the cadence. So our bass, which we already looked at, is up on the screen, indicates a few things. First, as I think I already mentioned, the opening 4 chords are tonic expansion. It's like, it's setting up the key. The composer, in this case is me, it's telling you what the key is. Okay, so if we look at our bass, we have do, fa, mi, do. Okay, and that tells us a couple of things. So then if we think about the 1 chord, do, mi, sol. The 5/7 chord, start down here, sol, ti, re, fa. And this is why movable do is so lovely, because it really helps you with tonic, with harmonic dictations. So do, mi, sorry, that's tiny, sol, and then sol, ti, re, fa. Sol in a 1 chord is a bit more rare. It's pretty unstable. Usually a second inversion triad has some sort of spectral function. So my first guess if I get sol in the bass is that it's going to be a 5 chord, 5/7, a 5 or a 5/7, and you can usually hear the difference between those. They kind of just serve different functions. So let's look at what we have. We have do, so that has to be a 1 chord. We have fa, that has to be a 5 chord in 3rd inversion. What's our figure bass for that? It's 5/4/2. Mi is a 1/6, right? Mi, that's our only option, tonic expansion. And do has to be a 1 chord. So there you go. You've got 4 chords right out of the way without even listening for the chords. You can just process of elimination figure that out. Okay, so then the rest of the progression is a little bit more complicated. I'm going to erase that there. We have La, and that's our pivot chord. Okay, so La actually, and then in the key of E, F sharp becomes Re. Okay, so these scream predominant to me. La or Re in the bass says usually predominant. So La, and then we go to our new T, Do. So that's a little kind of mini cadence to get us into the modulation. And then we've got another predominant chord with the A or Fa, Sol, Sol, Do. Okay, so pause the video and at your desk, think through your possible chords for these. T, Re, T, Do, Fa, Sol, Sol, Do. This screams cadential 6/4. Fa is playing the role of the predominant. So there's 2 predominant chords that fit within that. Think about that. And then obviously we end on a 1 chord. Okay, and then think about this chord here, the Re. Now remember, this is the same chord, so if it's minor in the first key, it has to be minor in the second key. It can't be major and then minor. So think about that while you're working. And that's it. So take that down. And then the last job we're going to have is to listen for chord quality. So you want to be listening mainly is something major or minor. And then is this last chord here, second part of the cadential 6/4, is it a 5 or a 5/7? Okay. And we'll do that. Okay. You could do this with phone listening. I'll give you 2 just for fun. Okay. Once more, particularly paying attention to that downbeat of measure 3 and then downbeat of measure 4. Those are your 2 like really big burning questions, and then also that second part of the cadential 6/4. Okay, one more listening. Take a look. You will notice when I put the answers up, we'll talk about it, how I'm writing the cadential 6/4 chord. I'll explain when we get to it. Okay, so if you're not ready to get the chord answers, back up and grab more listenings, but here's the chords in 3, 2, 1. There you go. So as I mentioned, we start on a 1 chord. We go to the 5/4/2, to the 1/6, to the 1. We're in the key of A. It's very obvious. And now, pivot chord. It's minor. So in the key of A, that has to be a 6, and it pivot. Then the new key in E, the 2 to the 5/6/5 to the 1. We're in our new key, and now predominant minor. It's a little hard to hear because it's in that first inversion. Minor, so it's a 2/6. And now the cadential 6/4, I have written as a 5/8/6/4 753. So the way I like to teach about these is that you hear it, we really do hear it as a suspension over sol. Okay, so 564, 5864, 753, 1. Okay, so that's it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to get the next video for the melodic dictation that goes along with this. And when you get a minute, jump over to my website, auraltheory.com, and take a look at that. And that's it. Hope to see you guys in the next video. Talk to you later. Bye.